Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, wherever you are. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. We have a wonderful guest on, as we do most weeks, and the more I was reading about my guests, the more excited I became about today's show. So before we get started, I just want to welcome Amnon, who is our producer.
Hello.
How are you?
Welcome back.
Thank you. I've been on vacation.
Missed you.
Oh, thank you. I missed you too. I've been on vacation and it was a blast, but I'm so glad to be back and get myself back and acclimate myself to my surroundings. I've been on a boat and I have what they call sea legs. So all of a sudden, if you see me going like this, you'll know it's because I think I'm being on a boat and I'm on water because I constantly feel like I'm in motion. But it was a blast. I had a great experience, and but it's good to be back amongst my friends and my family. So it's all good. So today, my guest is Dr. Larry Burk, and it's really exciting. Listen, anybody who has a website that's called Let Magic Happen has to be somebody that I would really be interested in sharing with you. And I know that your time is precious. So I want to bring you the best there is, and today we are. So sit back, get a pen and paper, and listen real carefully. And remember, you are more than welcome anytime during the show to call in if you have a question, you have a comment, you're curious, whatever it is. We'd love to have you do that. You can do that at 919-518-9773, or depending upon where you are in the world, you can Skype in with us anytime to computers 2, that's the number 2, K Voice. And then also we have a chat window that's open up right below our video that you're watching now. Put your name there and you can be part of the chat and ask questions, whatever you like. We'd love to hear from you. So with that, let me introduce to you my guest today, Dr. Larry Burk. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Shannon. I appreciate you having me on the show for October Breast Cancer Awareness
I don't
Month.
hear him. Can't hear you, Larry, but let's see.
I was just to say,
hear us? A little techie kind of stuff, but hold on, everyone. We had him before. Okay, so hold on. He's coming. I promise. He's very interesting, and he's doing some incredible work. And I was reading a blog from him today, and it was so interesting about dreams that warn off breast cancer. And it was so interesting. He was talking about all these different women who have had specific dreams that have actually located in their dream where they have cancer when they didn't even know that they had cancer. And doctors couldn't detect it, but they could in their dreams. And it was really fascinating. I know that many people have, dream, and their dreams tell them all kinds of things. And Dr. Burke is doing research on and with these women. So hold on, let's see. Do we have him? Larry?
Ready to test?
There we go. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say thanks for having me on the show for Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in October.
Great. It's good to have you here, especially a man talking about breast cancer. That's really fascinating and one that's going to bridge many different gaps for us. So I just kind of introduced you a little bit and I spoke about your blog, but I'm going to ask you just to tell everybody who you are and a little bit about your journey, because it is it is magic.
Well, yes, I call myself a holistic radiologist. I started out in conventional radiology in 1985 in the early days of magnetic resonance imaging. So I really worked intensively in the musculoskeletal area. I'm not a breast specialist, although I did do mammography in private practice for a couple of years back in the early 90s and I got an appreciation for how difficult those mammograms are to read and how much anxiety they create among the women who are coming for them. So now the other anxiety I dealt with a lot was patients who were going to the MRI who were claustrophobic. So I learned hypnosis as an alternative to using drug therapy. So that was really my introduction to alternative medicine and led me down the path into holistic medicine.
But you had lots of things that occurred personally, right, along that journey that kept tugging you I don't even know if you call it tugging, gently bringing you into the holistic realm. Is that right?
Yeah, my dad had kidney cancer back in 1987, and I was sort of wound up being his guide to alternative medicine. Even though he was a skeptical physicist, he still did the macrobiotic diet. He did visualizations a la Bernie Siegel. He went to healers, and he really had a magical journey for 7 years. And I learned it was sort of my initiation into the whole realm of alternative medicine.
That is so interesting to have had your father guide you into that. I mean, that was he always like that growing up?
Oh yeah, and he still guides me from the other side occasionally in dreams. So that's
Yeah.
good to have him there.
Yeah, it is. I when my father died, and my father was not holistic really in any way, shape, or form, but he did come to visit me right after he died in a dream and a meditation, and he said to me he was going to teach me more from there than he did from here.
That's the way it happens sometimes. And it turns out that some of the women in the breast cancer dream study that I just did reported that their messages about the cancer came from deceased relatives, often their grandmothers, or even their mothers if they'd already passed over.
Oh, really? That's fascinating. So you have so you have been accepted. So I mean, even though you're holistic and you do all these kind of funky things in the medical community, how are you received?
Well, because I deal with the strange powers of magnetism in what I do for a living, that gives me a little bit of leeway. 'Cause people don't really understand how the whole MRI thing works to begin with, and then beyond that, I just add, I stretch their boxes as far as they'll go, and I always do it with a sense of humor so that they can never tell whether I'm serious or joking.
Uh-huh. And so you are also the co-founder of the um, the Duke Center for Alternative
It was, yeah, Duke Center for Integrated Medicine.
Integrative Medicine,
It's now called Duke Integrated Medicine.
and you are the co-founder,
Yeah,
and that's where your office is.
I left Duke in 2004, so I worked in the Integrated Medicine Center from 1998 to 2004 when I left Duke, and I now work from home doing teleradiology, which means I read MRI scans from all over the country. They're sent to me over the internet, and I also have time to go to my wife's practice in the afternoon twice a week. She runs the biggest acupuncture practice in Durham, at OrientalHealthSolutions.com, and 2 afternoons a week there I do emotional freedom techniques, which is the tapping technique, and also hypnosis.
Gotcha. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the authority that this doctor comes with as a doctor and as a man, and his metaphysical journey, because it's really important to understand all that so that we can connect the dots. So now is with your all this stuff that you're working on and this work about dreams. Can you fill us in on how that got started and what that means and what's going on?
Well, I guess I should start by saying that I've been keeping a dream journal myself for 30 years, and I've had some interesting experiences along those lines, many of which I put in my book, which I'll mention is Let Magic Happen, Adventures in Healing with a Holistic Radiologist. And the first thing I noticed strange in terms of the health-related issues about dreams is when my dad was diagnosed with kidney cancer, 2 weeks before it happened, I had a dream about me having brain cancer on the left side of my brain. Everyone was shocked because I was totally asymptomatic and looked so healthy. And then 2 weeks later, my dad was diagnosed with kidney cancer, had a CAT scan, just like in the dream, I had a CAT scan in my brain when it happened. And I realized that was the only night I'd seen my dad in 6 months was the night of that dream. And I had the same, I'm a junior, so I have the same name as my dad. It was on the left side of his abdomen. The kidney's a little bit like, as a brain-like structure with a cortex and a medulla. So I think I somehow picked up on his illness 2 weeks before it was diagnosed and translated it into a dream that night. So
Hmm.
that was my first experience of any sort of dream diagnosis.
And then?
And then I had a dream a few years later about having lung cancer. And by this time, I started thinking, if I have a dream about cancer, it might be about someone else. So I just sat with that for a week or so, and then I went to a conference on mindfulness meditation, and there happened to be another radiologist there, and my friend ran up and introduced us and said, "Oh, he's a radiologist just like you." And when she said "just like you," I got a tingling sensation like down my spine, like, oh, this is important. So I said, "What are you doing at the meditation conference? Are you here for your holistic practice?" And he said, "No, I'm here because I have lung cancer." And I realized that I think I had dreamed about him a couple of weeks before, and it sort of fit together that I still went in and took a chest x-ray the next day, and it was normal. So
Wow.
that was my first introduction to this whole idea. And then I had a friend who, Polly Delavitt, who was one of my colleagues at the Integrated Medicine Center, who'd had a history for, I guess, 15 years before. She had gotten a dream message that she had cancer of the tongue, a spider crawling out of her mouth, and went to get a biopsy. The biopsy was negative, and she had another dream the next night. It was the two characters from MASH, Hot Lips Houlihan, and one of the surgeons who said, "You definitely have cancer of the tongue. Go back and have another biopsy." And she did, and it was positive this time.
So I guess I want to keep talking about this because I find this to be so interesting, and I'm just curious how you interpret what it means. I mean, how do you say that this is cancer of the tongue, or this is? I mean, how do you know that?
Well, the ones that are most compelling are where the dream actually uses the word cancer or tumor, and there's like no interpretation required. These are the dreams that are mostly in my study. At least half of them were like very specific. Wake you up in the middle of the night, got to go get a mammogram. So there wasn't any like, let me see if I can interpret this. It was like your grandfather shows up and says, "You got breast cancer, go now, and don't delay." And that happened on quite a number of occasions. So these are usually the dreams that are the most compelling dreams they've ever had in their lives. There's a sense of conviction that something needs to be done about it now, and sometimes it's very specific. It says it's in the right breast at the bottom. Pointing is actually either a dream messenger touching the breast right where it is, or the person touching their own breast and knowing exactly where it is. So those kind of dreams don't require much interpretation.
So it just is what it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this morning I had a funny experience because my daughter had called, and I was telling Larry this earlier. I had been away, and I didn't study about today's show until this morning because I've been away, and I always study my shows and my guests the weekend before, but I was away. So this morning my daughter called, and she was telling me that her husband had a dream about his mother not feeling well, and with that was over the weekend. Right after that, his mother called, and she wasn't feeling well. They had to call 911. They took her to the hospital, and she has shingles. And I'm so curious to know what was in my son-in-law's dream now that I'm, speaking with you. But I think we have, no. Anyway,
yeah.
Go ahead.
And I think it's important to realize that probably the most common psychic experiences that people have are in their dreams, because most people don't walk around being psychic and intuitive all the time, because their left brain's so busy doing something else and distracting and their right brain has kind of got a small voice that you don't hear unless you're very quiet. Except when you go to sleep, your left brain goes offline, the filter's down, and then the right brain can do its thing. So. And sometimes the right brain solves problems much quicker than the left brain does. Shannon, are you still there? I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no matter who this is, whether you're sensitive, not sensitive, metaphysical, not metaphysical, this type of dream is possible for anyone.
Yeah, and especially if it wakes you up in the middle of the night, you have to pay attention to
Hmm.
those.
Interesting.
Or if it's a recurring dream, same thing.
Uh-huh. So you are you're doing a paper on this. How many women have you actually studied?
Yeah, we in 2013 to 14, I actually after three of my friends had this experience with the dream warning, I decided it was time to find out how many other women have had this experience, and I sent out a survey using actually a social networking platform called dreamscloud.com, where they were the sponsors of the project, and they put it on their major. They're the major dream. They're the Facebook of dreams essentially, and they put it on there. I sent it out to all my email lists and all my contacts. We wound up getting 18 women from around the world who had this experience with the dream warning, who all had breast cancer, and that was the basis of the paper. There were a couple other women who were also responded, but one of them had what she thought was a cancer dream, and then turned out to be a benign tumor. After she'd gone through 18 months of energy healing, so her thought was that, well, it really was malignant when that dream happened, but by the time she'd done energy healing on it for 18 months, it regressed to being benign, and she had it removed, and it was a small fibroadenoma. So those kind of stories are interesting as well, because there is some suggestion in the radiology mammography literature that some small breast cancers will actually regress with time, which is not something you hear about in the mainstream.
Hmm. It really, I mean, it really is fascinating that you're able to document these things. Plus, I love it when somebody crosses over, so to speak, from a from traditional into more of the, the dreamy woo woo kind of stuff, and we need to get this information out. I mean,
And particularly now, because there's so much confusion around mammography, uh, they've been changing the guidelines back and forth. And there actually something just happened last week. The American Cancer Society changed its guidelines. So previously, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force said that women should start getting mammograms at age 50 every other year. Whereas the American Cancer Society, American College of Radiology all said every year starting at age 40. And now, just last week, American Cancer Society said, came out that you can start at age 45, which was a big shift.
so what does that tell you?
It tells me that they're not really sure how often you should get the mammogram. And there's enough skeptics out there that, you know, cause women to wonder if we really know, uh, you know, how often we should be getting any sort of screening study. Because in general, the people who are the proponents of mammography are almost all radiologists and have done all the studies. And then the skeptics are mostly family doctors and internists. So you've got this real polarization in the medical science world. One paper will come out 1 month by the radiologist saying, it's mammography saving lives, and then the next month, another one will come out from an internist saying mammography is causing overdiagnosis, and many women are being harmed. So if I were a woman right now, I would be confused.
Yeah. And what do you think?
Well, that's a good. I think it makes sense to keep a dream diary no matter what, because it doesn't cost you anything, and you might find out all kinds of other things besides, a health concern. So I always tell people, just buy a composition book, put it next to your bed, and write a health related question if you like when you go to bed. Set the intention you're going to have a dream that's going to answer your question the next morning, and then don't do anything the next morning until you've sat there and for a minute and said, "Did I have a dream that answered my question?" And write it down, no matter how unrelated it seems to your question, because it might have meanings that you will only understand with time.
So that's that's regardless of that's dreams in general. Just
Yeah.
whenever when you're having a dream is to keep. I mean, and I'd love to talk to you about this because people You know, me personally, let's say, I don't want to wake up and write it because then I'm concerned that I won't fall back to sleep. But that's not really the case, is it?
Well, I write in the dark, so I kind of scribble in my diary and hope I can read it the next morning. Other people have been using their smartphones to record it, or a tape recorder or something, so they don't have to turn the light on. Because you definitely don't want to turn the light on in the middle of the night because it suppresses your melatonin cycle, and you don't want to do that because melatonin is actually an anti-cancer hormone. So you want to keep your melatonin going all night long.
Hmm. Exactly. So we have somebody on the chat. I just want to
Oh, okay.
Zen. She said she just watched the Truth About Cancer series, and there were also scientists and specialists in that series who found their breast cancers do recede and heal spontaneously.
Yeah, my wife watched that series. I heard it in the background. I was busy reading MRI scans most of the time, but I think that was a very valuable series. And all the answers are not in, even uh, and things are changing every day, especially when you add the genetic testing into it as well.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of new things to ponder about it if you're worried about whether you have breast cancer or not. And certainly, a small percentage of people are going to have the breast cancer gene, and those are the people who these days are getting double mastectomies because their likelihood of developing breast cancer is often over 50%. But most people with a family history don't have that gene. It's only like a quarter of the people have the active gene. Now, the other controversial topic is this DCIS or ductal carcinoma in situ, which is called by some people precancer, but sometimes being treated aggressively as if it's cancer. And when we're having surgeries, and they may never have had any clinical symptoms from that had it never been found. Similar to what men are experiencing with prostate cancer.
Hmm.
So
So,
it's
so it's and the other piece that is Zan has said is that she's 52 and she's never had a mammography and has no plans to have one. Her plan is to eat real food, exercise, and have a daily spiritual practice in place.
yeah, and keep your dream diary too. That's part of your spiritual practice.
That's part of it.
And my dream teacher, Marcia Emery, who wrote a book called the Intuition Workbook for intuition for Fortune 500 companies. She introduced me when I gave my talk at the International Society for the Study of Dreams a couple of years ago on this topic. And she got up there, and I didn't ask her. I didn't even know she was going to say it in the introduction. She said, "Well, I'm 76. I never had a mammogram in my life. I just assumed that if I had cancer, I was going to have a dream about it." I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to say. I thought, well, if that's what your intuition tells you, it's always good to follow your intuition. I'm not sure that's going to work for all women, but again, people need to make their own choices. And I'm going to recommend another book besides mine. I do mention in here my holistic radiology colleague Tom Hudson wrote a book about leaving the fear of cancer behind, and it's all about it's your I'm blanking, your journey to health, I think, and he, if you just Google Tom Hudson and breast cancer, you'll find it. He actually is a mammographer, but he's also the only radiologist in the country that I know who's also certified in thermography. So he can actually tell you the strengths of thermography and the weaknesses of thermography, and the same thing with mammography. He's quite a unique individual.
So, from all of the stories that you're gathering, what what can you tell us about what you're finding out? Not just that if you have cancer, it's it's your grandmother, it's your mother, it's being specific. You've got cancer. I mean, because when I read this blog, I mean, that was one of the things that shocked me is that it was so specific and it wasn't in symbols. It was like this is it. So that's a very interesting point. But what kind of information are you gathering based on the fact that you are a medical doctor and that the industry, the medical field there's so many questions about care. There's so many questions about how we determine whether we have cancer or not, where the cancer is. What are you finding out with all of the dream research that you're doing?
I think if you refer back to Edgar Casey at the Association of Research and Enlightenment, one of the grandfathers of holistic medicine, he said nothing important will happen to you in your health that's not announced in a dream. So I thought that was a fascinating quote, and they were also a supporter of us doing the study. And I think I will just mention my first friend who told me about her experience was a very high level researcher in physiology who also was a meditation teacher, and she just had this dream out of the blue where she's being operated on by a woman surgeon on the table. It's vivid. It's life. These dreams are more real than any dream you ever had before. And she went in and had a mammogram, and they couldn't feel anything. They couldn't find anything on the mammogram, and she was distressed because she said, "I know I have a cancer right here." And the radiologist said, "Well, sorry, we don't find anything at all." And she said, "Would you please do an ultrasound?" And the radiologist refused. And frankly, we don't use ultrasound that often to screen for breast cancer, only if you have a lump that you can feel and you want to figure out if it's a cyst. So she wouldn't leave until the radiologist did the ultrasound. And the radiologist said, "Well, where should I do it?" And she pointed with her finger there, and she put the ultrasound there, and it showed the cancer. The radiologist turned white as a ghost, was shocked, and said, "How did you know?" I had a dream. And it's interesting, in the study, about half the women were able to tell their doctors about their dreams. Some of them didn't feel comfortable doing so. And then a couple of weeks later, she had the operation by the woman surgeon in her dream. Amazing.
It's amazing. And it's amazing, and I'm not surprised, but I'm still in awe.
And the only woman in the study who died, unfortunately, was a friend of mine. The third of my friends who had the experience, Sonia Lee Shield. She went to her doctor with a dream, and even had some symptoms, and said, "Yeah, I think I have cancer here." And he did a physical examination, couldn't find anything, and just said, "It's just normal breast tissue." And a year later, she was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. And so that's the only person whose dream got completely disregarded by her doctor, and she's the only one out of the 18 or so. She's actually the 19th woman in the study who died, and the rest of the women are still alive, as far as I know.
So this is just honestly, probably the tip of the bird when it comes to analyzing these dreams and understanding the messages that are coming when it has to do with our health.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was unable to get any of the breast cancer support groups involved around the country. I attempted to contact Susan G. Komen and Dr. Susan Love Foundation, and they weren't really interested unless it was funded by the NIH as a formal research project. And so I'm hoping maybe after the paper is published, they'll have a little more interest in it. But because I think we just barely scratched the surface of women out there are having these kind of dreams. The other thing that's important is that at least 2 of the women in the study used later dreams after the diagnosis to guide their healing process, which I thought was fascinating. In particular, Wanda Birch wrote a book called She Who Dreams about her experience, and she noted that during her chemo, she started having dreams where the big bag of toxic chemo was hung up on the pole and with X's on it, marking it as toxic. But then as it came down through the line, it turned into healing energy. And she wound up making her own guided visualizations, tape recorded, of her dreams that facilitate her healing process. I mean, you can't get better guided visualizations than ones that come from your own subconscious.
Well, I had my guest on from 2 weeks ago, who I mentioned to you earlier, Dr. Bruce Oberhart. He says that our subconscious is never stopping; it is constantly awake, constantly doing something. So we're never completely asleep. here's
the
one.
other thing,
Again, what were you going to
the other thing
say?
I'd like to mention is
Yeah.
that I've been told that if you compare the left brain to the right brain, the left brain is a serial processor, which means it processes one bit of information at a time in a very slow and methodical way, whereas the right brain is a parallel processor, which has many different things going on at once, can solve a problem for you very efficiently. And so, which one would you like to solve your major health problem?
Mm. Oh, I could answer that easily.
Yeah.
So here is here's a question that Chris has. In your opinion, why are more people open to receiving health messages via their dreams than others?
Um, well, I think part of it is you, if you set the intention that you want information, that would be the place to start. Otherwise, if it really is a nightmare and wakes you up, that's almost something that you can't deny. And it depends on how intense the dream is to get your attention. And sometimes you'll start with a subtle dream and you're not paying attention to it, and it'll ramp up and get. A couple women in the dream had milder dreams, which then escalated until they got the message. Some women in the study did mention, a minority of them, that they got a dream message, but then they just kind of ignored it. And then later on, they were diagnosed and realized, oh, I had that dream. I would have been better prepared if I had paid attention to it.
Mm-hmm. This is so interesting. So I want to ask you about radiology just for a second, and
Yeah.
we have another question: how you prepare yourself to read the scans and the X-rays as someone who's like you, a little different. Do you have some ritual that you do when you're about to read these scans or X-rays, or what do you do?
Well, I've been doing this for 30 years, so it's a little bit like I can do it in my sleep.
Okay.
I guess that's a dream pun, but I mean, it's pretty routine by now. And I know in 30 years, it's almost, I read only joints and spine. So I've pretty much seen everything and recognize it when I see it.
Mm.
Uh,
So
so
it's just plain simple, a little bit
it,
plain simple.
yeah, and they do say that even though you think of a radiologist as kind of a left brain uh, path, it's actually based on pattern recognition, which is something that actually the right brain does. And so if I've seen it before, I'll remember it, even if it was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And do you see in dimensions?
Dimensions. Well, way back in the 80s, I used to do three-dimensional CT scans, which is taking the flat two-dimensional CD pictures and turning them back into three-dimensional images, which is great fun. In the MRI scan, we don't usually do that because we use the three different planes, the sagittal, coronal, and axial planes to look through the entire body.
So do you? I want to ask you something a little bit personal in a way, and I'm not sure how to phrase it.
Mm-hmm.
But why do you think you have been chosen to do this?
That's a good question. I've been pondering that for a long time, and I realized that being a radiologist gives me a little bit more left brain credibility, so that I can give voice to the more right brain experiential things that I've been exploring. And actually, I was talking back and forth with Christiane Northrup a couple of days ago, because she was one of the big promoters of this study. And we were talking about social media and using it to get the word out. And I said I'd learned a lot over the last 10 years about doing that. But I said that she was the queen of social media, because she has 300,000 followers on Facebook. And so if she posts something online of mine, 1,000 people see it within a few minutes. And so I said she was the queen, and she said she's just grateful for having a platform to get the word out on all these fringe ideas.
That. So how long ago did she write her book?
Oh, she's written quite a few books.
About women's health. The
original one
yeah.
was way back, probably 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then she she came to our Duke conference when I was the education director. We invited her to come in 2002 and give a talk in our big national women's health conference. And the funniest thing happened that kind of connected us forever was we she got up to give the keynote address, and I was opening for the conference, and I introduced her, and I had told her just before she went on that, well, the continuing medical education office gives credits for each of the speakers based on their academic merit. And she was the only woman in the conference that they didn't give any credit to.
Oh, gosh.
And so she loved that, actually. She got up there, she opened her talk by saying, Larry Burk has just informed me that I'm the most dangerous woman in America.
Well, she's very powerful.
Absolutely.
She's been known for many, 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 many years. And she's been a voice out there for many, 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 many years.
She's like the Oprah of women's health.
Yes, she is. And I recently, well, I don't know how recent, but I saw her doing some social media videos. And I was so impressed because, I mean, she's not 20,
Well,
and she's magnificent looking.
and when she, it's also nice to know that following in her footsteps as another OB-GYN, Lissa Rankin. I don't know if you've encountered Lissa yet.
Yeah.
But LissaRankin.com, she also promoted the study on her social media platform, and she and I share a connection because her father was a radiologist.
So what are you looking, I mean, when you promoting, what are you looking to accomplish?
Well, I guess in terms of just the dream work is just to empower women to pay attention to dreams, and then to feel that if they have an important one, they should share it with their doctor, and then see what happens from there, and use it to cultivate their own sense of intuition. Because, as Rachel Remond said at one of our original conferences in 1997, for her keynote, her byline was, "Technology will not save us."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a powerful message. That really our own healing abilities that are going to do the job.
Right.
And we give away a lot of our power to technology, pharmaceuticals, and that whole approach, which is really not delivering the promise.
Right. No, I mean, excuse me, I've had a cold. Technology is not going to save us. It does help spread the message, and it does connect us to more of the possibilities and who's out here doing things, but it is not going to save us.
Yeah, and my biggest concern in the healthcare realm at the moment is that the agenda is generally one of suppressing symptoms, and that's not doing anything good for us. It's when I was in medical school, I learned all the pharmacological approaches to suppressing the feedback we get from our system. Everything is anti this, anti that, anti everything. And the best teaching parable I heard from one of my acupuncture teachers was, okay, if you have a really nice sports car and you just drove it off the lot, and all of a sudden the red oil light comes on, what do? Well, you look it up in the owner's manual, and it says, do not drive the car anymore, it might ruin your engine. So you take it to the mechanic immediately, and he takes one look at it and he says, yes, I can handle this. I know this car's electrical system. He takes it in the back of the shop, and he cuts the wire that goes to the red light, gives it back, and charges you a hefty fee. Now, most people are shocked that sounds like automotive malpractice. But when you think about it, that's exactly what happens when you go to your general practitioner and write me a prescription because I don't like this red oil message coming from my body. I just want that light to go off. And that's essentially what most of the anti-hypertensive, anti-nausea, anti-reflux, you name it, and that's all it really does. You never find out, is your car leaking oil somewhere? Does it need more oil? Does it need some sort of tune-up? Whatever.
Mm-hmm. So I have a really good question out here about that Sam just recently read about some herbs that can let's say lends themselves to lucid dreaming. Does this have let's see, does this have the same effect? What are other ways to help someone get more out of their dreams?
That's a great question, and there are a number of herbs and supplements that are reported to somewhat increase the vividness of your dreams and maybe the number of your dreams. The one that's the most mainstream is just to take some B6, vitamin B6, which supposedly will increase your dreaming. Now, you can take too much B6, so you want to take a moderate amount, but most people could probably use a little B6 anyway. And so that's the place to begin. Then the other herbs, you're going to have to explore the literature and the web. There's tons of information out there, and do it at your own risk. But I would also recommend, first of all, reading my friend Robert Wagner's book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. And you can find his information on, if you're looking for advice on lucid dreams, go to lucidadvice.com. And he's a wonderful teacher and will guide you. He has a new book out now, which is just Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, which is kind of like the beginner's guide. Highly recommend that. I'm not a lucid dreamer myself. I have had one or two my whole life, but I'm working on cultivating it based on his teachings.
So people can, excuse me, so people can learn. It's a practice.
Yeah.
It's not a gift that some people have and some people don't have. It's a practice.
Well, it turns out that some people are very good lucid dreamers based on what they experienced in childhood. And for people who had really bad nightmares in childhood, some of them actually came to the conclusion that I keep running away from this monster every night. I'm going to turn around and ask the monster why it's after me. And so they become lucid as a response to their nightmares. And then once they turn around and ask the monster, well, what's going on? And the monster says, well, I just want you to pay attention to what your father's saying, or whatever, whatever the monster is communicating. And then from then on, they become naturally lucid. So having nightmares as a child may predispose you to being a lucid dreamer.
Wow. There's hope for all of us.
Yeah, and they've even been using it for veterans coming back from the wars who are having terrible flashbacks, and encouraging them to, create a lucid moment where you, instead of having the same flashback every night, when the next time you have it, wake up and ask what it's about, and then heal it.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome, the same thing.
Yeah.
Fascinating. If you can face it.
Yeah, well, actually, it's all about facing your worst fears. That's when I do in my EFT practice, doing emotional freedom techniques, it's a tapping technique. When people come to me, I just tell them my job is just to make sure that you face your worst fears and tap your way through it.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we, breaking free. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've had anyone on talking about EFT before, but
well, maybe you can come back and do that.
Yeah, that's
I certainly have been exposed to EFT, and but I'm very interested because I think a big deal about the show is showing people who are doing things, talking about people that are doing things, people telling their stories of having done something, have a strategy, a technique, personal experience where we can sit back and go, you know what, I'm not alone. I can face my fear because they're facing it out there already. And look what happened with them, and look how it's turned their life around.
Yeah, and I think it might be a good time to mention that just one of the dreamers in the study, Keith Cannabis, wrote the book Surviving Cancerland. Just go to survivingcancerland.com. And she and I are starting to work on a new book about dreams of all types of breast cancer, not all types of cancer in general. And we've been collecting, since the blog came out in Huffington Post 2 weeks ago, we've been getting responses from people with lung cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, skin cancer, melanoma, and the most interesting one we've come across is actually the actor Mark Ruffalo, who's been very popular in movies lately. He's the Incredible Hulk on the Avengers, and he's been in a number of other. He's just in another movie called, or he was in the Now You See It movie with the Magicians a couple years ago. He had a brain tumor in 2001, but first he had to dream about it. And then it was so compelling, he went and had the brain tumor diagnosed. And fortunately, it was a benign brain tumor, and he had treatment, and he's doing fine.
Mhm. Well, as we continue, I just want to offer the opportunity for anybody to call in. You're more than welcome to 919-518-9773. You can talk about anything that you like to talk about. You can connect with us on Skype, on computers 2, that's the number 2K voice, from wherever you are in the world, or you can add questions on our chat. We'd love to have you there. Just put your name on the little line and just send it to us, and we'd love to hear from you. Here's another question. How bad do you think radiation is for us?
Okay, that is a good question. I do magnetic resonance imaging, and I was on the state committee for that for many years, and we think that the MRI is relatively safe, much like ultrasound. Now, with mammograms or any other CT scans, there's definitely a finite risk to every X-ray you get because they do chromosomal damage, and so you really want to limit your exposure. And CT scans probably are the highest dose of radiation these days, unless you go for a cardiac catheterization with an aggressive cardiologist. And unfortunately, over the last 10 years or so, they've been coming out with stories about people who go in for their cardiac cath, and it's very complicated, and they can't get the stent in the right place. They come out with a second or third degree burn on their skin from the direct radiation dose. That's really bad.
So who sends you? You said you read film from all over. Who sends you? Do doctors? Who sends, or people? Who sends you their scans?
Yeah, usually ours come from orthopedic surgeons around the world, around the country actually, and they want our group. We're just a subspecialty group that would do nothing but read these scans for high-profile sports teams and other sports medicine centers around the country.
Okay, so it's mainly so it's sports related.
A lot of sports, but a lot of just general orthopedics as well.
Gotcha. So now I know you also do hypnosis. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're into just everything.
And I actually work for a company called ComfortTalk.com, and we train MRI techs and other healthcare personnel how to do hypnosis with their patients as an alternative to intravenous sedation. And we're just training techs at Duke and Ohio State this past year. And we're anticipating training a lot of other folks how to do that because it's a wonderful way to cope with stress when you're in the hospital environment.
So it is to reduce stress. What else is possible with it?
Well, I mean, we're just focusing on reducing stress and anxiety around medical procedures, but it has lots of other implications for healing. And one of my hypnosis teachers actually had her abdominal hernia repaired under hypnosis without any anesthetic.
Well, that would be very cool.
That's she's local here in Durham. Holly Forrester Miller. You might want to have her on the show sometime.
Yeah. What is her name? Holly what?
Holly Forrester Miller. It's
Well,
hyphenated last name, Forrester Miller, and she's for Wellness Consultants International.
Well, you're just a wealth of knowledge of all cool people.
Well, she shows this video to the medical students on every chance she gets, and it's just it's an astounding thing to see her laying on the table, talking to the surgeon while he has his hands in her abdomen.
So let me ask you something. From where you sit, how do you see things going? Do you see more and more openness from the medical community? What do you see?
Okay, well, here's my vision of the future. I also work, do my research at the Ryan Research Center, which is the Parapsychology Center, and on the second, in the same building, they have the International Association for Near-Death Study. And I think what's really going on is the healthcare system is going through a near-death experience. And the good news about that is, although it's very frightening when it's happening, the four characteristics that typify someone who's survived a near-death experience and come back to tell about it is they have no fear of death, they have a sense of altruism and purpose, generally often become healers, and one of the reasons they become healers is because they have increased psychic abilities, and they also are electromagnetically altered in some way. So if we use that as a metaphor for what's going to happen in medicine, it means that the system's going to need to move beyond its obsession with the fear of death, which drives a lot of the healthcare expenditure, especially at the end of life. And then there needs to be an increased focus on true healing, and some of that will be electromagnetic or energetic, guided by people's intuition. So that's where I think we're going.
So, it's interesting watching you. I'm watching how you, I can see you, I can see him, he cannot see me.
Yeah, I know.
Right? But do you not, I'm asking all of you out there, do you not notice a constant smile on this man's face? Now, what is that? What's the connection with that in this work? Because you seem to have like this aura about you, and I don't see color on you, and I can sometimes see color. But I don't see color, but I just see this constant dimple and this constant smile. Why? What is that about?
Well, that's because I look at this whole experience as another day in Earth school.
But not as a joke.
Not as a joke, no. Because the all the institutions that we have right now are failing miserably, and anything from healthcare to the legal system, the government, education, finance, you name it. So we couldn't have gotten it more wrong if we were trying. So there must be a reason for that. And the only reason it makes me smile is it gives us infinite opportunities to make courageous choices.
I think we had to make it so wrong to give space for it to be better. I mean, I think we have to get it. It had to show up as being so wrong and so bad. Otherwise, there wouldn't have, I don't think that the urgency and the okay, so I have no choice anymore. I have to go with what a Dr. Burk will say. I have to find other doctors like Dr. Burk who are like out here talking about these funky things. I have to. Because what other choice do we have? I think that's how it's going.
It's a big wake-up call, and of course people tend not to wake up until they're forced to surrender.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
and
right.
Surrender is one of the secrets to being guided. So I do describe the let magic happen technique in my book, which is set your intention about what you would like guidance about, and sort of agree to get yourself out of the way and be open to whatever possibility comes, and then be patient and curious about what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's when you can let magic happen.
Right. And I have two really important things to say on here that are coming up on the chat. But before I do that, I just want to, so do you sometimes feel like you're sitting here, not just here in general, but here on Earth, and you have this information, or even if you don't know all the information, but you're researching information, but you know something is different than the way it's being, than the way traditional whatever is being promoted, and you're sitting here and you know something, and you're like, almost, it's like there's a joyness about the fact that you know something, and yet, do you know what I mean?
I feel like Morpheus in the Matrix, and whether you want the red pill or the blue pill. Yeah.
I hear you. So one Zen is saying, Larry, you are confirming my vision of the health system. Debbie wants to know, do you have group dreaming sessions teaching people how to listen and understand their dreams?
The most exciting thing I'm doing at the moment is going up to the Monroe Institute.
Uh-huh.
They have the HemiSync technology up in outside of Charlottesville. And I do workshops up there with my favorite intuition teacher, Winter Robinson, and we're having one in November 6th to the 8th, and then they've been so successful that we're going to expand them to week-long programs in 2016, and that information's on LarryBurkMD.com or LetMagicHappen.com. So those are great opportunities to really expand your consciousness.
All right, well, I want you to tell everybody what they can find, where they find, and this is a lot, okay? So tell everybody what they find. Go ahead.
On my website, you can. I've got a newsletter that comes out about every every other month. It's not very often. And I've got blogs that have all kinds of information on the homepage. And if you actually sign up for the subscription to the newsletter, I send out a free opt-in gift, which is my top 10 mind, body, spirit, self-healing techniques with a little video for each one to teach. It's all about having the experience and teaching yourself how to do it.
And up at the Monroe Institute, how many? I know that I read the book from, I can't remember what his name is, but he was a surgeon, and he had that out of body. He had he got sick with meningitis.
Yeah. Eben Alexander.
Yes. He's up there too, right?
He's a good friend of mine, and he has done some work there, and he's also doing now working with something called sacred acoustics, which is a slightly different approach to doing similar things with sound technology. And yeah, and I mean, and there's been a real rash of new developments in near-death experiences from Eben and Anita Morgani and Mary Neal, who's an orthopedic surgeon. 2012 was a big year for near-death experience authors, so I would highly recommend, if you want to start smiling a bit more, read some of those NDE books.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you know, I don't know what I'm going to say, if it comes out right or not, so I'm not scrutinizing what I'm saying, so everybody out here, just hold on. But I wonder, you know, I've come in contact with a lot of doctors in my day, and a lot of them struggling emotionally. A lot of doctors with drug addictions, alcoholism, all kinds of doctors with sensitivities and all kinds of stuff. And I'm wondering, now that I'm speaking with you, I'm wondering if some of them are just caught in that place where they don't like what they're doing, but they haven't, and they're kind of, they're sensitive, and they have these experiences and these feelings, and they haven't really figured out this other side yet. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of us still have PTSD from medical school. Mm-hmm. And then now that the system's getting worse and worse, all the symptoms from medical school are just being magnified. And I think Alyssa Rankin writes about that really well in her work.
Because go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, difficult time to be a doctor, and of course, for all those young doctors to be, we hope you're signing up to change the system in a radical way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of doctors have this knowing and want to kind of jump ship in some ways, but they don't know where to jump to. And they're sensing things metaphysically, intuitively, and they're still stuck on that left brain.
Well, I always console myself that the kids who are going in the medicine now know what they've signed up for. They came into this lifetime to do something radical, and they're putting themselves in the belly of the beast.
Yeah, because I mean, it's fascinating. I love talking about this. So Zen is, she said one of the quotes from The Truth About Cancer is from Mark Twain. It's easier to fool people than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. Sadly, I think we have years of pharmaceutical companies guiding the system. I hope I'm wrong. I am a health and wellness coach, and I find people are afraid to believe they can heal themselves. And maybe so, but I think things are changing.
Well, yeah. Just make sure you don't watch the news from 6:30 to 7 on the, all the terror. All the terror news is packaged around drug company ads.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm very grateful that you have come on today, and if you're willing to come on again and talk some more about some of these other things, I would be very, delighted to have you come back and talk about EFT, hypnosis, anything you choose to talk about.
That would be great, and I'm grateful for the opportunity here. And I want to remind people that gratitude is really the secret to abundance. So let's all go for that.
So So can you just expand that a little bit?
Well,
what we're talking about.
On the cover of my book is the white buffalo, which symbolizes the Native American spirit of abundance, and gratitude is the secret teaching of the white buffalo calf woman.
So gratitude about anything and anything in your life expands not only what you get, but what you give, what you see, where you are, what you can accept in all parts of your life. I mean, the more grateful you are, the more dreams you'll have.
Absolutely.
Right? So, Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I totally agree. Makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me too, and that's why he's smiling.
Yeah.
Because it makes perfect sense. Did you have a? There's another. Okay, Debbie. So Debbie is on here, and she said, "You must have been strong and different from others to not be brainwashed and allow yourself to step into integrative medicine, intuition, and energy medicine."
I attempted to put all that in my book, and there's still a lot more to tell, so I need to write another book.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, definitely. So he was somewhat chosen for whatever reason, but there's a lot of you out there that are chosen as well to share your experiences. And I hope and I pray and I ask you to feel free and comfortable to do it here whenever you like. And if you have any questions, anytime, to connect with us, because this is the place where you can feel and connect the dots. Any closing comments, Dr. Larry Burk?
I would just say, make sure you're having fun when you're doing it.
Yeah, really. Otherwise, why for, right?
Exactly.
Otherwise, then the other side kind of wins. Anyway, so thank you so much for being here and being here with such a sense of humor. I appreciate it.
Okay,
and a great smile. Huh?
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. And everyone out there, thanks for showing up today and being here. And remember to connect with me anytime, Marilyn at MarilynShannon.com. And be on the lookout for a lot of those doctors and people that Dr. Burk has mentioned. Be on the lookout because they're going to be here. Take care. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.